I just don't talk to the spirits that help me. I talk to the ancestors. And when I call on the ancestors, I always ask them to help me convey this message in a good way, that you find understanding in what I'm trying to tell you, that you grasp onto it, that you respect it. I ask the Creator and the ancestors to help me give you that message, that you will understand the sacredness of what we are about to do. You know, each individual journey, it's your journey. You can't drag all these people with you. When you're walking that alone, you're walking it alone. The only way for you to truly comprehend it is to come into a ceremony. Put your camera aside, put your fear aside, put all of that aside and just be human and come in and experience it. No matter how difficult it is, that's the only way.
In the 16th century, European navigators, explorers of new territories, pointed the bow of their ships towards the west. Hidden behind thick curtains of fog, the first lands to be seen were those of the island of Newfoundland. 500 years later, the climate on these steep coasts hasn't changed much. But what about its inhabitants? The story they tell is fascinating and complex.
A long time ago, this island was called a different name than what it's called now. We refer to this island as Takumkuk, and they don't say Newfoundland. It only became Newfoundland when John Cabot came here in 1497. And because he was looking for new lands, and he found this land, he called it Newfoundland. But we call it Takumkuk, and it means this is our land.
When the French, Dutch, and British set foot on this island, the local indigenous population were living in nomadic tribes, moving around the land according to the seasons without fences or borders. But for the Europeans, steeped in individual values and notions of private property, keen to discover and conquer, it is primarily the huge schools of cod spawning along the coast which encouraged them to settle here and to found the town of St. John's. Since this time, fishing boats have never stopped going back and forth from the port, which has now become industrial. A few miles from the capital, out of sight and away from the swell, the little port of Petty Harbor watches the icebergs coming down from the North Pole pass by.
45 years that I've been at it, it was like just amazing to have the opportunity to go on the water. You know, the water gets rough some days, and it just changes overall all the time, right? And then the beauty of our island, go to drive around our coastline and stuff like that, is amazing.
I don't think Bo Derek ever wore a sou'wester.
She did.
When?
In that part of the movie.
Oh, really?
Yes.
See, I never watched the movie.
My family is here like 200 years, and that's all they ever done is fish, right since they came from Ireland. When they migrated over here, they fished, they settled here, and they fished. That's all they done. Like when I wanted to become a fisherman, I just go out and you pay $20 for a license, and get a boat and lines and go fishing. Now it's like $200,000. Whoever comes to this community to fish, got to fish the way we do, right? With hook and line. They're not allowed to bring in gill nets, big trawls or anything like that, right? So you got to be like one fish at a time coming in the boat. But have 3 lines out, but you're only allowed to haul in one fish at a time, right? Like my father and his father, they fought to get that. So that was important. Without that agreement that they had, they would have wiped it out here. They would have destroyed the fishing grounds with nets and stuff, right? Like other places, any other place around the island, they're allowed to use gill nets, right? And trawls and stuff like that, right? But we don't here. Once that stopped, if we give up doing it, it's going to be gone. It's going to die. Because nobody else is going to be interested in doing it, right? So we're very, very passionate about passing our knowledge along, right? And just like my father passed it to me and his father passed it to him. So, and same with everybody in the community. You got it? You gotta love it here, you know, in order to stick it out here. It's a rough spot to live. You know, it's a wintertime. It's really cold, and then the ice comes up, the pack ice, from Labrador, because Labrador's freezing cold all the time, and then all that ice travels from Labrador. Like today we got northerly winds, so that pushes the ice down from Labrador, pushes it down south. There's some places on this island, south of here, is a place called St. Shots. They often had 92 days straight of fog. 92 days straight, nothing else, only fog. No sunlight, no nothing. So a place like that is depressing to live. I just love it here. It's like heaven. I think if people said, oh, die and go to heaven, or sure, I said, I'm in heaven. To me, it's like, you know, it's peaceful, and it's not a stressful life here, you know. Some people just can't do it. They'll go there and they'll it's not worth it. They're not making enough money. They stay going, and they just they'll move on to other jobs, right? You know, but it's not all about money. It's all about contentment too, right? So if you can get enough to pay your few bills and you got enough to eat, there's no better life than it. You know, in my opinion, right? I could be wrong.
With the passing generations, the people from European descent have shaped small communities along the coast, mixing a cultural heritage from the old continent with the harshness of a local way of life which revolves around the sea. In the adversity of these places, these people are indomitable and fight to stay that way.
So when people belong in a culture, and then somebody comes in and tells you, like, "Oh, your culture's gone now. You get to start something new." It's very, very hard to adjust to that, right? Especially the Inuit. They could live in an igloo, or they could live in a fucking tent, you know, right out in the wilderness area. So the government took them then and bought them in, built houses for them, and said live in houses. And they didn't want it. They were forced to do it. So there was a tremendous change to their life's culture, right? And they done lots of committed suicide.
Look, it's nice and quartz and everything. Look at that.
If the government said to us people here in Pretty Harbour, we all got to move to St. John's. Just no more Pretty Harbour. Community is going to be shut down. There's no more fishing here. You got to move to St. John's. A resettlement, right? It'd be a shock, like that a lot of people wouldn't be able to handle, right? And they done that here in Newfoundland. Because there was all these communities settled everywhere, all around, and the government wanted to resettle them. Said, "Oh, you move out that island to this small little place you're at, and move into the big city."
When trust is established, it does not take long for the conversation to turn towards memories of wounds which are still very much alive. The problem of uprooting affects a large part of the population of Newfoundland in one way or another, be they descendants of the settlers or indigenous. I leave the coast and head into the territory to meet a discrete indigenous community, the Mi'kmaq. Gone River is a reserve one day's travel from St. John's. It is entirely inhabited and administered by the Mi'kmaq. On this territory, everyone shares the same history, a history which unites them today.
In 1749, a governor in Nova Scotia issued a proclamation that said every living Mi'kmaq person in Atlantic Canada was to be shot on sight, men, women, and children. And for the first year that happened, it was 10 pounds sterling. I don't know how much money that is, but I would imagine in the 1700s it was a lot of money. The second year was 15 pounds sterling, and the third year was 20 pounds sterling for every scalp brought back of a Mi'kmaq person.
I started falling in love with the country when I was in my teens, growing up, and then eventually I ventured out on my own. I don't mind getting up in the middle of the night and leaving my house and going to my trap line. And I spend 20 some odd days, probably 30 days on my trap line by myself. You know, it means that I guess I'm at home. When I go in on the country, I'm at home. When I'm in the woods, I'm at home. So it means I'm at home when I'm in the woods. I'm proud to walk on my land. Well, like I said, we're keepers of the land. So we'll go in and we'll keep track of the caribou. We count them. We'll see people doing things that they're not supposed to be doing to the animals. We'll go and tell them, you know, you're not, stop them. We report them. We haven't got the law to arrest them, but we should, but we don't. And so we're just the keepers of the land. That's all we are. And we'll make sure that, you know, it's kept clean, the garbage is picked up, and the animals are safe. And this we could do to our ability. We just do it.
The British government set up a reserve here in 1870. So we actually lived on a reserve that was set up by the British colony. So there was no problem identifying us. We had no choice. Not that we wanted one, but on the outside world, outside other parts of Newfoundland, became a thing of fear.
You know, I'm proud to call my land, but, you know, I got to ask the province, so could I go out and get a moose for myself? But my grandfathers and my ancestors didn't have to do that. If I get caught harvesting a moose for myself, they would charge me for poaching. As a Mi'kmaq person, I don't consider it poaching. I'm getting food for myself, food for my family. Although we could run the store anytime we want to get food, but the part of our culture that we live off of wild meat most of my life. And that's brilliant to me. That's brilliant to all the people that live on the reserve. I guess you look at it the other way, I'm talking about all this is my land and everything around here, and now I'm talking about going out and killing the animal. I kill it because I need it. And it's as Mi'kmaq people, I'll treat that animal with respect when I put them on the ground. I'm not sitting on and taking pictures. I'm not strapping the head to my bonnet in my truck. I'm not jumping for joy because I got a moose, and I don't shoot that animal just for the sport of it. I kill it because it's there for me to harvest to get food as a Mi'kmaq person.
When you look at the incredible place that we live, if you go back 200 years, this place would have been like a grocery store. It had many species of fish in the rivers. It was only a day's walk to go to the land to hunt caribou or beaver or other animals. So when our people landed in this place, it's like we're home. The grocery store is right here. We have no fresh salmon in our rivers. Now, people are blaming fish farmers. They're blaming the oil companies. They're bringing invasive species to this land that we never had before. All those things are part of what we deal with every day.
Soldier boy, soldier boy, against no one. Soldier boy,
Pick up your flags down at the power committee booth. If you haven't registered, please do so.
The Mi'kmaq are particularly suspicious of strangers. They will only engage with you after being assured that you are well-meaning in regard to their culture. After which the doors open slightly, giving access to the rites and the customary practices reserved for the community, during which all cameras are generally prohibited. I consider myself lucky in being able to record these moments. The powwow is an annual gathering where the local people are invited to come together to pay homage to their ancestors. It's also the time chosen to revive the forgotten rites and practices.
We had to go more or less underground, and we had to hide what we were doing. That's why it wasn't so visible for a long time. There were laws made preventing us from practicing our ceremonies. There were laws imposed upon us that denied our language, denied our culture, denied the ceremony. And if we did ceremony, we were in jail, put in jail or prisoned or severely reprimanded in some way. They would punish our people for doing.
behind our staff carriers, we have our flag carriers. Encouragement from the provinces. We have Terry Jones.
Every person that's in this community is my family. And I often say to people outside that maybe don't understand, I've got 800 children that I look after, or 1,000 children that I look after. We make our own world here in Miawpukek. This is our world, and we make this as traditional as we can.
Head dancers, seniors, and sex. Women, head dancers, the Freedom Youth. Behind them we have our
both Mi'kmaq and Canadian, half and half. Makes us feel good that we're Canadian, we're First Nations, Mi'kmaq, and just makes us feel good. And we could tell like all our like outside friends, and he tells me you should embrace your culture, and I'm like, thank you, and it really helps me be proud of who I am. The POW is for people to gather, like I said, but it's to gather around and watch us do what we do, right? Maybe it looks like a show because people's looking at dancers, but really they're just there to learn and just learning how the people express their culture. I don't think it's a show at all. If it's a show, well, you should be selling tickets, but it's a show. I gotta learn that the drum is the heartbeat of Mother Earth in our Mi'kmaq culture, but when I hit the drum, I don't feel nothing special. I just does it because it's fun and it makes people smile.
Our people need to understand this. They don't truly understand themselves if they can't understand this. What this is, and what it represents, and how far back it goes historically. This is something that all our people need to understand.
The thing is different is the technology that I say. Everyone don't want to participate in our culture anymore. They just want to go out, play video games, just stay in home all the time, and just stuff like that. And back then they didn't have that, so all they did was out fishing, trapping with their parents, grandparents, getting stories and all that. And my grandfather told me a couple stories, and he took me on trapping adventures and all that. But when I grew up, I got more interested in technology and all that, and going out with friends. But I didn't like keep going trapping adventures with my grandfather and all that.
Back when I was growing up, we had no electricity, we had no television, we didn't even have a radio. So the only entertainment we had was storytelling and being on the land with your grandparents or your parents. And they were teaching you things in a Mi'kmaq way that you had no idea that you were being taught until much later in life when you realize that I recognized those things because my grandfather told me it was good for me. The modern way of life is so new to us. Everybody was like being locked in the candy store for a while. We all want a car. We all want a snow machine. We all want the four-wheelers. We want that.
Spiritually, yes, it does a lot for me, you know, I mean, in regards to being on the land, hunting, fishing, trapping, I mean, whatever I do, I mean, it's a connection that, I don't know, I can't explain because it's such a good feeling. For me, like I say, it's something that I have myself, but I mean, I should be sharing it more because I had an opportunity in life to learn all these things from my uncle, and it's only fitting and right to pass this on. So so the younger ones need to hear about it and see it and do it. So to understand where we come from. They're so lost in or swallowed up in today's world. It's so fast paced. It's so much going on that they're losing that connection. And it's like myself and other people, especially parents, we need to get them, at least introduce them to it and see if they like it, they like it. If they don't, they don't. Well, I mean, I've been around long enough to, see both sides of it, and my own take on that is that even though culture is everything, we're promoting it and we're doing what we can into schools. We're doing the language, we do the drumming, the dancing. We do a lot of the traditional stuff and country and fishing and that. But modern world, sad to say, but modern world's going to win out. Unless something drastically changes. I mean, especially at home. I grew up being a Catholic and everything else, and as the years went on, I mean, we tried to where we are reconnecting with culture and tradition and that. So that's why you see stuff now like sweats and smudging and stuff being brought back. But for me growing up, I only saw going to church and praying and stuff like that because my mom and dad did it. So did Uncle and his family and all that. So I believe in a lot of the traditional stuff like the smudging and stuff. And I also believe in the Catholic way. So, I've kind of tried to get my balance with both of it. I don't believe in either one of it more or less. So both of it I use when it's, for my own well-being. If I need to pray, I pray. If I need to have a smudge, I have a smudge. As of right now, I mean, my uncle's passed. And even now, when I go on the country or I go on the river or I go out in the boat, I mean, I have that connection with him. Like I said, I hear him in the wind. I see him in the sky when I see the eagle, and that kind of stuff. So everything I do, kind of reminds me of him. When I'm moose hunting, when I, whatever I'm doing, it's stuff that we did together. So it brings back a lot of good memories.
All dancers, all categories.
Take her away from me.
They're sharing the spiritual aspect, and they really respect it here. Really, truly respect it here. Most of this community don't take part in ceremony. You know, they've been Christianized for so long, and they don't understand that that journey that we go on to be able to use this and take this.
To respect the people is what we're doing today. And when we dance at a powwow, we're dancing for our ancestors. We're praying for our ancestors. We're welcoming our ancestors. The spirits of our ancestors to be part of our celebration. And prayers that you say, daily prayers, is done in the sense of thanking the ancestors for all that they've given us. Without them, we couldn't be here. So they play that role every day in our lives. Without ancestors, there'd be no us.
In this culture under reconstruction, the new generations crystallize all their hopes. Without them really realizing it, the renaissance of a culture which has almost disappeared rests entirely on their shoulders. Regaining the identity of the Mi'kmaq people by restoring their rights, their practices, and their language is an ambitious project slowly growing in people's minds.
It doesn't smell. It's not like pollution. Like when we go to cities, we can smell a lot of pollution, but in here, we don't smell that. There's like barely any garbage and stuff, hardly of us like smoke and stuff, so I'd rather it here.
And freedom. You could do a lot more things, and there's no one to tell you what to do because you're on your own. And yeah, that's it. Ready?
Both of them can't say nothing. The only words they can say is Mi'kmaq. That's it.
And that's no. They never grew up with the classes we had. The classes we had only started recently. Only in like the 2000s it started. So it was very, very recent that we started learning it in our school. That's why they can't speak it.
Don't burn yourself.
The language. The language of our people is missing. Every person over there that are a Mi'kmaq people should be speaking the language. The language was outlawed by the church back in 1921. So that freedom was gone, and it's now coming back. But today, our first language has become English. And we have to overcome that one. We have to teach our tongue that to speak another language, we have to teach our mind, our body, to speak the language. The difficult part for us now is to regain all of those things and to teach our children all of those things and to teach our families all of those things. It have to come automatic. It can be done. It just takes a little time.
Get me dead over there. Don't tell you nothing. You must do. Get me dead over there. And the drumming is like when you like say if you cut down a tree, that's like saying sorry to Mother Nature. That's what kind of drumming is about.
And we sang the honor song to honor our ancestors. The elders represent wisdom, and they've been here longer before there was any technology, and this is what they used to do for fun. And they do this with their parents too that know more.
And a lot of that will come from the younger children in the school who's learning about those things that we never learned about. So those are the people that are going to bring us into that future that we only dream about now. Plants and the trees are all had names. The rivers had names like people. The mountains had names like people. So that's how I grew up, and that's what we need to regain again in some way to bring that heart and soul back to the people again.
Deserves the same respect as a person, as a human being. This ground deserves the same respect. The plants and the medicine deserves the same respect. It's done with respect, and it's the same thing with coming here to this community. Since the first white man landed on the shores, we were always having to make sure that everything's protected, everything's spiritually protected, and that's why we do this, is to help our people have that connection and have that protection that they need, that our ancestors watch over us all the time.
We're now coming back to a traditional way of life again, where we now practice our culture, our traditions, language. So we've taken control of our lives again in many ways. We now are driving the car ourselves. So now we know where we want to go and how we want to get there. We now speak to government on our own behalf. We don't need people to do it for us. We are no longer forbidden by law to practice our traditions. In a sense, I guess what's happened to us is that the governments and the church and the armies, they can take away your pride and your dignity, but they can't give it back. You have to take it back. And that's what we've been able to do here in this community. We've taken back our pride and our dignity. We want to drive our own car. We don't need someone to do it for us.
But there are things that we need to share that happen within that we need to share them. And the only way for you to truly experience it is to come in. If you got a chance, like I said, don't be scared. There are a lot of good lodge keepers here in this community right now. Just coming in here and filming in this lodge is what we refer to as taboo. But there are things that we, as the Mi'kmaq people, as a spiritual people, have to be willing to share. And that's the knowledge of these lodges. My first time when I came out of the sweat lodge, my very first sweat lodge I went to was in Cape Breton in Eskasoni. There was a gentleman come up from South Dakota, Sioux. He was Sioux, Lakota Sioux. He come up to show our people the lodge. He brought the sweat lodge to our people. The very first one I ever saw, he brought it. When we come in, we were all jammed in there. We were shoulder to shoulder packed. The lodge was smaller than this, probably about up to here, because we only had that much room from the pit to sit. 17 of us, shoulder to shoulder in there. He sat right by the door. He was the one who was pouring the water. And as he poured the water, they brought in all the grandfathers, one round, 24 of them. They brought them all in. The pile was up to here, red hot. It's like you could feel that heat just hitting you, the radiation of that heat. It was so hot. And that's even before the door closed, before he put on the water. And when he put on the water, he just laughed at us, told us to pray. He didn't tell us what to pray for or who to pray for. He just told us to pray. I sat there, I screamed and cried, no doubt. I was I was in a lot of pain. The lodge was so hot. And when he opened up, a couple of the men jumped out and didn't want to come back. I sat there and I was thinking, this man is not going to cook me out. This man is not going to do this to me. I'm going to pray harder, I figured, and make it true. And I did. Even though I got all red blotches on me, cooked, I could feel my pulse just jumping down my neck like that. But when I crawled out, after that ceremony was done, and I was weak and dizzy, and I stood up, I was almost falling over. I was so weak. And I looked up, I could see the steam coming off my shoulders, just rising up into the heavens. The sky was stars everywhere, beautiful cold October night, beautiful. And I knew that moment, through all that pain and misery I just come out of, I knew this is what I've been missing in my life. I knew this was part of me. At that stage in my life, I wanted to die. I wanted to commit suicide. I tried many times. And I made a promise to myself and Creator that night I was going to try to leave the drugs and my bad stuff alone and move forward into this. I broke protocol bringing you into this lodge. I'm letting you guys know right now I'm going to get some slack for this. And that was my commitment. I had to carry the pipe and I had to carry the lodge and carry those teachings and be able to share these teachings